Brad here. Great DIY. This video is for those who have been thinking about putting in a garden, who have a very small piece of dirt and they've watched weeds grow year after year. They keep talking, well, why don't we put it in a small garden here? Why don't we? Well, I'm going to show you how simple it is. All you need, a pair of gloves, a shovel, and a rake, and a little bit of little blood, sweat, and tears, a little grit. Here it is, November of 2025. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prep my garden for next year. And that simply means I'm going to turn the dirt. I'm going to show you some of the results from earlier in the year. I had probably 40 tomato plants because I like tomatoes. And I'm going to show you the devastation of what happens to a garden. You run into unexpected things. These unexpected things are pests. And that's one thing you're going to have to be aware of. You may want to read about your geographic area. Now, clearly, if you're in a colder environment, this is something you're going to do once the dirt or snow or ice melts. And there's some workability in terms of the dirt. I'm in California. We have this beautiful fall weather. So I'm going to be out turning dirt in shorts and probably a tank top because that's how nice it is in mid-November here in Northern California. The point here is there's going to be things that if you put in a garden, you might not be aware of. And I wasn't aware of this particular pest. 30 years growing tomatoes, they've been unstoppable. And this year, they were destroyed in 3 days. 3 days. All 40 plants gone. I tried some remedies, but these pests, once you read about them, they are unstoppable. So if you're going to put in a garden, think of what pests or insects might be in your geographic area and prepare. Go to a big box store and buy something that might be preventative. You could take a defensive approach once you identify the problem. I didn't identify the problem until after the fact. Well, enough rambling. How about we go and I show you exactly what I do in terms of prepping my dirt, and I'm going to show you the byproduct of removing all of my tomato plants immediately after identifying the problem, and then the end result, and then what I'm going to do to solve that problem. Stay tuned.
So here we have this small piece of dirt. It's about 13 feet by 5. And in the background, you're going to see the byproduct. What happened was, as I stated earlier, I had about 30 tomato plants here. I covered this area, and I got hit by what's called spider mites. I don't know if you've ever dealt with spider mites, but within 3 days, they destroyed this entire garden. And the byproduct here, if you look right over here, those are all regrown tomato plants that I'm going to turn over. This stuff here is just some leaf, just some junk. But what we're going to do here is just turn this dirt over and prep it for next year. And if anyone has a solution other than organic killing of spider mites, it doesn't work. So if you have another solution, pass it along. But anyway, all I'm going to do is I'm going to start back here so you can see, and I'm just going to turn this dirt over. That's it. All you're going to do is, I forgot my gloves, but you can go any way you want and just turn the dirt over. I have gloves, I have a round point shovel, and a metal rake. Now, if you try to use a different type of rake, a leaf rake, it won't work. What you're going to want to do is smooth all this out. Oh, tomato plants. I'm going to turn all this stuff over, and then you're going to see some other junk that needs to be turned over. Now, in some cases, you might want to use a hula hoop and just cut that stuff out. If you have grass, for example, you can turn the dirt over, including the grass, and let it decompose over the winter. You could turn the grass, trash it, and just try to salvage the dirt. But if you do the grass route, you're gonna have to turn it a couple times before you plant anything in the spring. But that's just another means you have available to turn your dirt. Now, in terms of turning the dirt, you don't have to get overly aggressive. I just do that. Okay, and don't worry about covering everything. You can go back and take care of that with the rake. But what we're doing is going 3 or 4 inches. In new soil, you might want to go a little deeper. But essentially, turn it over. You want to try to cover up all the green, anything that's growing. So you can say goodbye to all of those tomato plants here in a minute. And that's it. Pretty simple. This will take about 15 minutes to do this 8x5, maybe 20 minutes. And all I'm doing is turning it, mashing it down a little bit. You can see why you want to wear gloves. Keep in mind, if you got a bunch of rock stuff in there, pull all that stuff out, throw it over in a pile and trash it. Now, because I have been doing this in a particular small garden area for years and years, the dirt is easy to turn. I'm sure some of you are going to have clay-like conditions and maybe perhaps not suitable on the surface, but you can still prep it and then go buy some coverage, in other words, some compost, and you can put 3 to 4 inches and use that as your topsoil to accomplish the same thing. Again, this is all just about experimenting. There's no way I'm going to be able to cover up all this stuff the first time around. I'll come back in December and probably turn it again, so don't be shy about doing this multiple times during the winter if your dirt is suitable for, if it's not frozen or covered in snow or ice, what have you. If you have a rototiller, you can accomplish the same thing in a quarter of the time. I don't have a rototiller. This is just a little bit of exercise. And like I said, it'll only take a few minutes. And voila! Speaking of pests, there are endless number of pests that can affect your garden. There are resources available online that you can use to identify different critters or moths in your area that could start the infestation. Spider mites, if you don't know what they are almost microscopic, and once they find an area, they're going to breed an absolute, just a huge number of mites, and they build webs. So my entire garden covered in spider webs or mite webs. Yeah, right out of the movies, I tell you. So the first go around was I tried washing. It's recommended online, wash them. Huh, that's a joke. So then I had some tree stuff, fruit tree, pesticide stuff or insecticides, kind of a hybrid that I use for my peach and apples and my plums. That didn't work. So then I tried a combination of all 3. Water, the 2 different, I tried to use, I even tried to use copper oxide. I don't know why, because it was in my pile of stuff. In other words, copper oxide you spray trees in the wintertime to prevent leaf rust. I figured, well, it's in my box of stuff. Use it. And it was laughable. So by then, it was gone. You would think there was a reprieve, right? I thought, okay, with this final approach, that the little vermins were gone. Nope, they came back, and by then it was too late. So digging through my boxes of garden and insect stuff, I found, I won't even name it because they pulled it from the market long ago. All right, it was just sitting in my box. It's probably been sitting there for 20 years. And I said, well, what the hell? It said insecticide. Worked like a charm. There wasn't a single anything there from July through October. There wasn't a weed. So I figured this stuff I sprayed destroyed this area. It was a nuclear approach. We had early rain here in Northern California in October. Within a couple of weeks, with a lot of warm weather, in a couple of weeks, this stuff just took off. So that was good. My nuclear option wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but it worked. Spider mites were gone, but there's got to be a better solution other than this stuff that the EPA banned long ago. And the organic stuff doesn't work. The crap that they sell at the big box stores, I don't know if it works or not because there's so many regulatory constraints in terms of safety and what have you. And that can't be good. There's got to be a remedy. And anyone who's an expert, please explain to me. And I read up about spider mites, but where do they come from? And I know now how to identify the problem before they infest the entire area. There was a way over here. I had some just free-grown tomatoes. They were wild, but there was a water source and they sprouted crazily. And they get plenty of water, but at the beginning of July, they started dying. And I didn't identify any kind of web type stuff. And I thought, okay, well, there was a period that I didn't do much watering. Was that enough? And then, see, I just found a nail. You don't need that in your garden. So then I noticed a couple the tomato plant's dying off just randomly. And again, my watering may have been a little bit delinquent. But keep in mind, July in Sacramento, 105, 110. And if you miss a couple days of watering, it could impact your garden. So I inadvertently left my drip water system on overnight and got up the next morning, and it's not catastrophic by any means, but there was plenty of water. But there was a pattern of the across this line here, and they were all just dying. What? And within, from that point, things just kept getting worse, but there were no spider mites. I mean, no visible spider webs or webs. And then, I don't know, probably July 10th, they were just this entire area was just one big web. At that point, I knew I was in trouble. Voila, what can you do? Lesson learned. But this byproduct is really interesting, all of these crazy tomato plants. I was thinking of letting them live, see if they could survive the winter, but I know that would be ridiculous because the first frost will knock them out. Well, I'm going to continue, and I'm going to show you after all this is turned what it looks like, and then I'm going to show you what I do in terms of raking. Now, in terms of raking, it's optional. In the fall, you can leave it like this. I like to just smooth it out. That way, come spring, I can it's nice and smooth after the rains have compacted down, and I can also pick up any residual stuff if there's any rocks or what have you. I throw compost. I got that compost there, and I'm going to throw that on probably February, March, and that way, I mean, you're going to need a rake. You're going to need a sturdy rake in order to take care of it. You definitely need smooth ground when you actually plant, and then you also would need to level it off. I have it sort of grading down, so any excess rain can go that direction. Now, here's another thing you may want to keep in mind. There's going to be critters underground. I have moles. You're also going to have, depending on what part of geographically where you are and where you put your garden, I mean, you may have deer. You may have raccoons. You may have possums and skunks. I have deer, but they don't get in my backyard. But I have skunk all the time. I have opossums. I have squirrels. They don't mess with the tomatoes so much. In the past, I've had other vegetables growing, and trust me, the critters and birds. Now, birds don't like tomatoes, but they like everything else. For example, this cherry tree. This is my sad little cherry tree, but now it's much better. It was left to die. That's a 400% growth from when I replanted it in May. So it's coming back. I might replant it somewhere else. What I want to do is I don't know if you can see it. I want to put it's called a avocado, and I want to put a avocado here, and I want to put one in front of my house. So if my local gardening center, couldn't score any in 2025 because they are a delicate little plant in terms of trying to grow. But if you have wind of avocados, I don't want moss or anything else. I don't want to be mandated to put in two avocados. They're self-pollinating. So if I just want to plant one, I'm good. But if I want to plant two, that would just be voluntary. That's why I want to put avocados and test them. But you have a lot of variables when it comes to your garden. I think it's fun. I eat all of my tomatoes, and I give a lot away. Buckets and buckets of cherry tomatoes. And they're all native. In other words, here's the problem I may face. All this growth here, that's next year's crop. And I might not get natives, so I might have to plant seeds, and I don't want to do that. I like them native, and they're all cherries, and they're delicious. And I eat them I eat a lot of them. Now, you can leave this, or you can toss it. I'm just going to leave it here and let it die on its own. Just natural compost. That's it, folks. If you have any comments, your experiences putting in a garden, your successes, your failures, and any tips, share. Hope you enjoyed this. I did. It was just exercise. It had to be done, and so I figured I'd just turn on the video camera and rock and roll. But yeah, if that helps, give me a thumbs up, a like, and see you soon. Thanks for watching.